is Brent Cahwee, and I want to welcome you to the Native Ball Legacy of a Trailblazer, living in 12, living in two worlds Facebook Live event. I'll be your panel moderator today, and I have two wonderful guests who will be joining me that are widely known throughout Indian country. I'm excited that they're here. I'm excited to hear their thoughts, their comments on everything about this panel that we'll be discussing today. But a little about me first. Again, my name is Brent Cahwee. I'm the co-founder of IndianSports.com. I've been covering Native athletes for the past 21 years, and we're on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we have a website, of course, IndianSports.com. Obviously, everyone's fairly familiar with who I am and what I do. And I've been fortunate over the past 20 years to cover athletes like some of our guests today. And I only wish we had Indian sports back when Malia and other athletes like her were playing as well. So, but to go ahead and get into the introductions, the first person I would like to introduce today is Miss Lakota Beatty. Dakota. She is coming to us from overseas. She is a current professional basketball player. She's a mental health advocate, and she's a former Oral Roberts University basketball alumni player. Welcome, Lakota. And I do want to read a little more about Lakota's bio here. And you have to excuse me while I shuffle my papers around. Lakota is a professional basketball player, mental wellness advocate, and a licensed professional counselor and trainee, and former NCAA Division I basketball star. She is dedicated to helping Indigenous communities through her unique blend of Western, holistic, and traditional medicine, with a focus on empowering Indigenous youth in sport. Welcome, Lakota.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here. We also have another wonderful person on our panel today, and his name is Mr. Shawn Martinez. And we want to welcome Shawn there. He's the Senior Director of Live Presentations for Phoenix Suns and Mercury, the Mercury, also known as DJ Tribal Touch. Welcome, Shawn.
Hi, everybody.
I am going to also read a little quick bio about Shawn for those who may not be familiar with him. Shawn obviously is the Senior Director of Live Presentations for the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury, overseeing in-game production and entertainment elements. With his leadership, the game day experience at the Footprint Center in Phoenix has been elevated, creating a strong, one-of-a-kind home court advantage. A little bit about Shawn, his background. Sorry about I shuffle more papers here. Shawn grew up in the Navajo Nation and is an enrolled member of the Diné Nation. He excelled in athletics during his time at Window Rock High School and continued his basketball journey at Fort Lewis College. With a bachelor's degree in communication and fine arts, Shawn embarked on an entertainment career under the stage alias DJ Tribal Touch. So those are the bios of all of us. And before we get into the discussion here, we definitely want to watch the trailer that will be played. And
basketball, I think it was in my genes.
It made history in 1992 by becoming the first female Montana tribal member to play NCAA Division I basketball.
We had to figure out how to live in two worlds.
I can't say I would have played if I wouldn't have seen her playing.
She played her best for herself, for her university, and for her tribe. That's what makes her a warrior.
All right. Native Ball Legacy of a Trailblazer is airing on almost every 300 PBS stations around the country in November in recognition of Native American Heritage Month. It can also be viewed at pbs.org and the PBS YouTube channel as well. So make sure you check it out after watching our discussion, or hopefully you can watch it again if you found our live event. But before we get into, really talking about the content of the movie, the messaging and stuff like that, let's just fill everyone in and viewing on what's busy with you guys right now. And we'll start with Lakota.
Yes, like my bio said, I'm currently in the Netherlands playing professional basketball. I played in New Zealand last year for a short stint, and I am here for about another month. So yeah, I'm playing right now and practicing and, just trying to work as hard as I can.
Shawn, can you update us on some of the wonderful things you're doing? I know you're like all over the country. Lakota's all over the world, but you're all over the state. So can you guys kind of give us an update of what you've got going on as of recent?
Wow. Where do I start? But I will be short and sweet. Just got back from Washington, D.C. for the White House Native Youth Summit. Had the great opportunity, thanks to MC1, to DJ for the kids there for the Native Youth Summit, which is very uplifting just to see our youth striving to get better, striving to get to the top through these events. It was great to be a part of it. Also working for the Suns, being in the NBA for 21 years, actually. It's flying by so fast, but being a part of the originative turquoise jersey for the Suns from the ground up, from the very first day, it actually brought me home back to the Reds. So I'm so excited to be here and be a part of that and still keep the story going. This medallion here is like my tribal passport, where it's a storyteller, it's a conversation starter, so I can talk about what we did here in Phoenix and how we represented the 22 tribal nations of Arizona, and just keeping the story going, letting people know that we're still here. And that's just a little bit of where I'm at, but there's a lot going on, and I really appreciate being on this panel.
Awesome. That's great to hear, Shawn. And I appreciate you both you guys really being leaders in Indian country and being visible and being available to the youth and functioning for youth events as well. That's really important for me, from my perspective. That's the whole point of Indian sports, is to create an outlet for youth to look to see who the next leaders are, like yourselves. I mean, that's the point of Indian sports, is to let kids know that there are NCAA division athletes. There are people in the sports industry like MC1 you mentioned earlier, and Shawn as well. I mean, we're making waves in Indian country, and it's, I'm just so happy that you guys are here. Before we get into some of the panel discussions that we have listed for today, I definitely did want to talk a little bit about some of the themes in the movie that we can talk about that I thought were important. And I'm sure you guys have both seen the movie and Malia's career. And, this takes us back to, I think it was 1992, I believe, when Malia was playing in Montana. And one of the things I wanted to point out, additionally, at the same time, we had Gwen Grant, who was Navajo. She was playing at UNLV at the same time. And she was wrapping up her career. And then also we had Rinelli Vicente, also Navajo, who was playing her final years at Arizona State. So this is a huge time, a big time for reservations in Arizona. This is a huge time for reservations in Montana. Obviously, we didn't have Indian sports at the time, but the whole of Indian country would have known about all these athletes on the day if Indian sports was back then. But, when I watch this movie and I think about Lakota and how important she was to Oklahoma kids, just as big, maybe not, not to just her tribe, but to all the tribes that are in Oklahoma. So one of the things I want to talk to you guys about, or have a simple discussion with now, every reservation has a Malia Kip, right? Around El Vicente. So how important are these type of athletes to their community and other indigenous communities as well? And who inspired you? And one of you guys can go ahead.
Go ahead, Lakota.
Okay. Oh, wow. I can't express enough how important it is to have a Native role model like that, because I had, I had them. And I think, I grew up watching Shoni and Jude, my cousin Shauna, when I was in high school. And so, and then you always heard about, I heard about Rinaldi and Malia because my family, they're from the Fort Belknap Reservation in Montana. So you always hear about these players that played, back in the day. And I think it's so important just to have those role models, because if I didn't have them and didn't really have anyone to look up to, you don't think you can do it. But then I saw, I've seen pictures of Malia, like even before I heard about the movie, like I knew of her just because she played. And then I heard you hear about Rinaldi and Gwen Grant and all of these people. And then I got to meet them at the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. And, the movie, it's talking about a trailblazer. And I think the most important component of this movie, and it says it in the movie, is the one girl that also played at University of Montana. She says, I don't think I would have played if Malia didn't play. And that is, I can't overstate enough how important that is, because, in high school, I went to watch Shoni and Jude play in the Final Four in Oklahoma City, and they end up winning, going to the national championship. And, that motivated me to work hard. And literally the next year I got to play in the Sweet 16. So it's so important to have those. I think you think about if it's a domino effect. If Malia didn't play, another Native girl probably wouldn't have seen her play and thought she can do it. So in a positive way, Malia plays, someone else plays, and then all the way down to, 20, 30 years later. And here we are, and I'm, playing overseas. So I think you want to inspire the next generation. And I want to tell, exactly what Malia did, that we can go play Division I and we can be successful.
Thank you, Lakota. Shawn, you want to chime in
Yes,
from your perspective?
absolutely. Inspiring the youth of tomorrow, just like she said, it's just what we're here for. And watching Rinaldi play back in the day from my hometown, just like, even though I was graduated and on with my career, just having her set the blaze the trail for the younger players from back home. Those are really important things for us, because it gives us someone to look up to. For me, I looked up to my brothers. Had 3 older brothers, so I always had to find a way to beat them in some form or fashion. And then my mom, raising 5 kids by herself. I know that's a common story across Indian country, but my mom was the strongest person around, and she just really, put her boots on, went to work every day, and made sure we had everything we needed to succeed in life. And I always look back to that, knowing, selling her Spam sandwiches, getting us gas, getting us where we needed to go to games and everything. It was just unbelievable just to see her fight and her spirit to get us everything we needed to succeed. And, for what I do now, when I go talk to schools, I always talk about, I made it to the NBA. I just made it a different way. And there's other ways you can get to the NBA. If it's not through basketball, you could be a mascot, you could be a dancer, you could be a producer, you could be a game producer, you could be a DJ. There's so many different avenues you could take, but don't lose that dream and keep fighting to get to where you want to be. Set that goal, sharpen your tools, and be ready for the right place, right time. And that's how I live my life. That's what I try to tell kids. Make sure you're ready for the right place, right time.
Awesome. Thanks for that comment there, Shawn. In watching the movie again this morning, for me, I just love everything that she talked about, in her time that the things she went through as a student athlete. And you guys were student athletes back in the day. And some of the themes from, 1991, 1992, you still see a lot of those themes today. The teams, you more or less become the spokesman for Indian country on your team. It's, the theme of this panel discussion is living in 2 worlds. What can you talk a little bit about your adjustment from going, in high school, you're an outstanding basketball player, community support, friends and families, teammates, relatives on your team. And now you're thrown into a college environment where no one knows your culture, no one knows your customs, no one knows your language. You know, in the movie, she talked about some of the teammates touched her hair, you know, and that's something that you don't do in our indigenous cultures sometimes. So can you guys talk a little bit about your personal experience with that adjustment? Okay.
I had the same experiences, and it is crazy to watch it back and see that that was in the 90s. And it still happened when I was in college, you know, 2014, 15, 16. First day I got on campus, I had non-natives, you know, grab my hair and tell you know, they were like, oh, your hair's so pretty and so thick. And, you know, I was like, no, you don't do that. But it's the main thing, the main feeling that I always had throughout my entire career was it was just a lot of pressure to be able to have to explain and be the spokesperson about being Native, because, you know, a lot of people don't understand that we're still living just like everyone else, and we still exist. And there's a lot of stereotypes and different tropes about us and stuff. And so I think on one hand, you have the pressure of I'm Native and I can do this too, and I'm smart enough to be here and I'm good enough to be here. And then on the other hand, you just want to play ball and you don't want to have to be a spokesperson because you already have so much pressure from your home community, and you don't want to let anyone down, and you want to be the best you can and represent your people in a good way. But then it's like, you know, I've had so many comments and they're just like, oh, I didn't know Natives existed, and, you know, say little stuff like that. And you feel like a relic almost. And so that takes away from you being on the court, because no matter what level you play, it's really difficult to be Native and to be, you know, kind of thrown into the fire. But then when you play Division I, you're expected to perform, and that's the top of the top. And it's really, really difficult to try and be, you know, in two different worlds and be successful at them both. So I think this is why these conversations are so important, just because Native kids need support, and I know I needed support, and I wish I had someone to talk to about like just stuff off the court. Like, you know, I miss my people, and it was a culture shock and all of that stuff. And so that's why these events and these topics are really important to hopefully, you know, bridge that gap. So when Native kids do encounter little stuff like that or big stuff, that they have a support system and somewhere to go to, and someone just to say like, hey, I've been through it too, and you're going to make it.
Shawn, you got some thoughts for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are for you and not going to drag you down was one of the biggest things that I kind of tried to figure out, and I'm still figuring out today. I mean, it's a game of life that you try to navigate and be successful in two different worlds. And for me, going to ASU my first year out of high school, it was too big for me. I had to make a change. So I ended up transferring to Fort Lewis, and, you know, learning that when you have a seat at the table, you got to make sure people know you're there. So putting in the work, making sure the coach knows you're there. One day, I felt like he forgot I was even at practice one day. So just raising your hand, like, hey, I'm still here. I need to get in the game. I need to get some reps, those kinds of things. But just trying to let them know that I'm worthy to be on the court at the same time with the rest of the players, and using my family as a good support system to call home and, you know, get the encouragement to, hey, don't give up, keep fighting, keep playing hard, keep doing what you're doing. And to this day, just coming back and speaking to kids and trying to give them that message, like, you got to work hard and you got to be ready for the big moment, because the big moments are going to keep happening in your life. The more prepared you are, the more successful you'll be. And, you know, just using the words from family and the encouragement has always been something big for me to get me through all the tough obstacles in my life.
Great answers, guys. You know, one of the things that Malia had said in the movie that I thought was really important, because I've had this discussion with other Native athletes as well. She had mentioned something and I'll paraphrase it here. The ball doesn't know what nation you're from. And I've heard this before too when I talked to Dakota Beatty in the past. He's like, the golf ball doesn't know what race I am. And in that instance, to me, it's like saying, okay, sports isn't about race, it's not about color. Sports is about competing, right? And to get to that level and compete at that level takes a lot of hard work. But as we know now that, maintaining that mental health, that positive mental health environment, can you guys talk about back in your days or even currently now, what you guys do to keep a mental health back then versus what you do to maintain your mental health now? Because I think that's important that we talk about these aspects because as we know, sports is more and more competitive. It's tougher to get a scholarship. It's tougher to get seen, and it's requires kids to start training their bodies and eating healthier at an earlier age. And so now competing at a high level, you're competing at a higher level in high school than ever did. So can you guys just kind of talk a bit about what you did back then with your mental health and how you maintained it? Obviously, like I said, with Malia in the movie, it sounded like once the game started, that was her stress. All her stress went away from classes, from being a role model and things of that nature. Lakota.
Yeah, I think I'm older now. I retired for 3 years, and so I'll be 29 pretty soon. And so I felt a significant shift in the mental health part when I was in college. It wasn't as prominent to talk about as it is now. Thankfully, I think people are just getting more awareness. People, coaches, staff, players too, we're able to advocate for ourselves a little more in terms of mental health. And for me, I think I look at myself in two different chapters of my life as a ball player, like, in college and then in my professional career. And I wish I could tell my younger self, just to try and relax and have fun. And I think now the demands of, being a professional and it's pretty boring. I have kids right now they ask me like what I did to get here and all of this stuff and what I'm doing now. And like right now, you mentioned eating healthy. That's not something I was taught when I was younger or in high school. And as your age, your metabolism slows down. And then all of these different health disparities we have within Indian country. I think right now what I'm doing is it's monotonous. You're just working out and that's it. Like when you sign for college, you're signing your life away. So I think it's to not expect to really have a life. And so for me, it's pretty monotonous. I make sure I eat healthy. I make sure I'm hydrating. And I'm so far away, like what Shawn was talking about, I'm 5,000 miles away from my family right now. And it's so important that I'm able to call them. And that just goes back to being, community oriented people. And we just need each other and you need support. And so what I tell these athletes, is like, it's boring. It's not fun all the time. You're not going to want to do it most of the time. But I think for me, my biggest thing is take care of what I can control. And then if I'm taking care of that, the rest I can't even, really worry about. And so I'm excited to help younger kids with that space, because when I was playing in college, it felt like so much pressure just to do well and to perform. And it feels like, your whole entire world. And so in this part of my career, I'm trying to enjoy it, and I'm in a different country. And so like Malia's quote where she said, the ball doesn't know, you just play, like it levels the playing field. So in a way that kind of can take the pressure off of, you wanting to do so well because you are the only Native girl there most of the time.
Thank you, Dakota. Shawn, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yes, the ball doesn't know, but the ball for me has become a magical ball that's taken me from, I played way before, a long time ago. I used to play basketball back in the day. But knowing what that ball has done, not only for me, but the community and how it brings communities together, that's what I'm like a people guy, I guess, if you will. I'm always talking to someone, trying to make sure everybody's good. Mentally for me in college, and it was tough. Like I keep going back to family, calling my brother, just making sure when my dad left, my brother Lefty became my mentor. So he really helped me get through the tough times of navigating being native, the only native on the team at the time, and just encouraging me to not to quit and to keep going. Like he was always on my shoulder. I could hear him every day just saying, you got to keep striving. You got to keep working for all the things that you want, because basketball was life for me right after high school. I mean, it was everything. I wanted to play. I wanted to keep playing. I was in the gym and mentally going to the gym, playing even more basketball, working out, all those kind of things kind of helped me stay in the game and make sure I was physically and mentally ready to keep up with the players that were on the court at the time. And those are the little things that kind of just really helped me. I know when I didn't get to play my senior year at Fort Lewis College, I remember that day, like I was sitting in the phone booth crying to my brother, telling him they're not going to let me play my senior year because I did a year at ASU, and it was just devastating. But I redirected my focus to say, where am I going to go next? Where is this basketball going to take me next? And just mentally trying to refocus and redirect with the help of my family and the support system that I had around me. And coming to today, I mean, I've been in the NBA for 21 years, just redirecting and not letting the little things stop you that hurt the most, finding ways to get around it and redirect that energy to make something positive out of it. And the journey from going all over the place, from being with the Denver Nuggets to being with the Detroit Pistons, then finally coming home because of the jersey, it's just been an unbelievable journey for me. And I think the biggest thing mentally for me was just keeping the family close and making sure they were my lifeline all the time. I was calling all the time just to make sure I got that encouragement, because I knew they're always going to be on my side and encourage me in the right way.
Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate that answer. And that really kind of leads us into the next question. And Shawn, I'm going to come right back to you with this question. As being a native athlete and being away from your homelands and reservations and community at such an age where custom and culture is really important. Now you're at this time you're heading to college. These are important times. You're transitioning into young adulthood, and you're away from your community and your customs. Like I said, this leads to the question that we're going to talk about today. How have you managed to maintain your traditions and values in these new environments that you're in? And how has it helped shape your experience in those environments? And Shawn, I'll go right back to you.
I think the shaping of my traditional experiences has come later in my life, growing up with a single mom, just trying to make things meet and connect and take that journey, coming all the way 360 degrees to where I am today now, connecting with all 22 tribal nations and my tribe, coming home, relearning Navajo, reconnecting has been such a blessing for me. And like mentally, for me, it's been very helpful because I have people that I can lean on, just making those connections back home so I can learn and continue to develop the traditional side of what is about my life right now. And I think this whole journey from college all the way through to Denver to Detroit and back here has just been an amazing experience, because it brought me back home to what I was raised on, what brought me into the game, if you will. And it's just been something that's always good to lean back on. And everybody who asks me questions about what's the tradition, how are we going to approach that? What do you need to do? Are you good with this? Are you good with that? And you just kind of have to explain to them that these are things that I need to do, that I need to take care of to be successful in this world. And just navigating that with my mom and my brother and very close friends back home who really helped me get through to where I am today.
Thank you, Shawn. Lakota, before you answer the question, one thing I want to say, is I love your mom. Your mom is like the most wonderful person in the world. I enjoy chatting with her. And I know family and tradition is really big with yourself. How would you answer that question? And I'll go ahead and repeat it. And the question is, how have you managed to maintain your traditions and values in these new environments as you're traveling overseas and playing ball and doing things in communities?
Yeah, I would say that thankfully I have the best parents in the world, and they've always reminded me and my sisters how important it is that, we are Indigenous and who we come from. And as I've gotten older and as I'm literally, living in a different country, that has been my anchor, because it's really difficult to be away from home, and you don't speak the language, and they speak Dutch here. And I think when you're young, you're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I just want to play ball. Like, that was my perspective. But my parents, just kept reminding me and kept made sure it was important that we stay connected. And above all, that's who we are. And I'll stop playing basketball one day. And so for me, as I got older, in 2014 was my first in-7 game. With Nike, we did the turquoise uniforms. And so that's when I really started to understand the importance of, who we are and the position we're in the position that I'm in, to play at, the highest level. And you want to represent your community well, and then you want to do well. You want to be the best, you want to play well. And then it's just become more evident as I'm, away from home in a different country where they don't speak English, and there's language barriers and all these other barriers. And so I know no matter what I do, if I have a good game, if I have a bad game, if I have a good practice, bad practice, if I don't want to go to practice, at the end of the day, it's just a game. I'm Native American, I'm Indigenous, I know who I come from strong people, and that makes me feel like I can do anything. Because of what, I think my parents did a great job of telling me my ancestors and passing those stories down. And so being over here made me realize just how I'm so thankful my parents taught me that, to be strong and to know who I am and where I come from, because it's, taken me places that I didn't think was really possible.
Thank you for that answer, Lakota. One thing I want to go mention before we move on to the next question is, if you're listening, watching, and you have a question or comment for any of us, you can go ahead and write into the comment section, and at the end of our discussion here, and we'll try to get to some of the questions, but not all of them. But getting back and kind of staying on that topic a little, Lakota. Again, in the movie, Malia is talking about, she's obviously one of the only natives on campus as well. And there's not much representation. She goes into her coach's office, and he's got books and materials in his office. And then it was the first time she didn't feel alone. Like, I'm not the only one who, when you're Native, you become the representative for all natives, unfortunately, in these environments sometimes. But the question is, do you feel there's sufficient understanding and representation of Native American culture and history in these environments? And what would you like to see to change in the future? Lakota.
I don't think there will ever be enough representation or knowledge about us. I do think there's still, I came across a lot of ignorance, and even on the worst end, racism and all kinds of stuff like that. But for me, I think it makes a difference when you can tell, when you have allies, or you can tell the people that you're involved with, like if a coach or staff or something, if they're making an effort to bridge that gap. But I would say, no, of course there's not enough representation. I think what Shawn's doing in Phoenix, and like, the N7 stuff and all of this stuff that people have like kind of cultivated, and it's becoming more popular now, like in this point in time. But that's so important. I think it just starts the conversation. When I was in college with my N7 games, I would get comments, and they'd be like, what's the turquoise represent? And then you can kind of tell them and have a conversation about it. But I think for me, the most important thing is like, no matter if these people don't make an effort to know who I am or want to know, I'm still pushing the envelope, and I'm still representing my people. And it's hard to find a balance between being the spokesperson while trying to, for me, like, trying to play ball right now. But I think that's why it's so important to know who you are and know who you come from. So if this person isn't making an effort, or if there's no representation, or if it's the incorrect representation or this trope of who people think natives are, it's not true. I still know who I am, and it's not going to sway me or make any, real impact on my purpose and what I'm doing moving forward.
Thank you, Lakota. And Shawn, I know I mentioned you earlier, you've been in this for 20 plus years, and I know you and MC1 are having great careers in the NBA and the field of what you're doing. And if there's anybody that I want to hear comments on for this question, it would certainly be from you and your experience and your knowledge. And I'll reread the question as well. Do you feel there's sufficient understanding and representation of Native American culture and history in these environments? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I think, man, might make me cry because I'm so proud of what the Suns have done here. Just coming home and being a part of. I'm gonna hold up this picture just so everybody can see. Here, hopefully it comes through here.
Come a little closer.
Oh, this way and up. That there is representation from 22 tribal nations, sitting with Booker, Chris Paul, having a seat at the table, and being able to tell their story. It was just an unbelievable day when we were on the set for that, and not knowing when I got the job, something crazy was happening. They reached out to me to like, hey, we want to do something with the jersey. And it was the gentleman that I worked with in Denver, Graham Wincott. And he's like, hey, do you know Raul Mendoza? I'm like, oh my goodness, that was my high school coach. So things just kept going. Raul was my high school coach. We started talking about the jersey. We started talking about the color, the turquoise protection stone, reaching out to all the tribes to get their word for sun down the side of the jersey. And we approached it the right way because we went to all the tribal leaders. Phoenix Indian Center was involved. Governor Lewis, my president, back in the day, it was Jonathan Ness when we were planning this. Now we got Boo. Nabby was a part of it. Unity was a part of it. It was just an unbelievable thing that our company, the Phoenix Suns, were reaching out to tell the story and tell it the right way. And I wear my ghost beads, my everything, my medallion every time you see me on TV, or if it's on a TNT game, and I tell the kids and I'm talking, I'm like, hey, that's a kid from Fort Defiance, and he's directing the show at the Phoenix Suns game. He's in charge of the atmosphere, and all the questions come about this, and people who don't know me ask about this, and they say they love this. So it's a way to tell the story about us and the representation that we have in the game. And I don't think any professional sports team has ever done this. And it's just been a great platform for our team. And it just really connected all the tribal nations here, not only in Arizona, but across the country. As you can see, I've been to DC 4 times because of the jersey, to tell the story and represent us and let people know we're still here. And I continue to tell the story, and I'm excited to do that every chance I get.
Awesome. Thanks, Shawn. I really appreciate that insight into that question. Again, just a reminder to people, if you have questions, put them in the comments, and as we get close to time, we'll look back around and try to get some of those answered. But with that, we have a variety of viewers out there. We have Indigenous and non-Indigenous white viewers out there. And I pose the same kind of question to both of you guys and staying in the theme here. What are some of our, what do you think some of our non-native allies can be in support of that, and helping with the representation of Native culture? What are some ideals, or what are your thoughts that some of our non-Indigenous allies can provide or help do to help with Native representation? Lakota?
Oh, good question. I think the most important thing, one of them, is probably just education on who we are. I think it's really hard, especially, when Malia was in college and when I was in college, and other Native athletes I know, that you're having to do all the same things that your other student athletes are doing. And then you get a question like, or a comment about you being Native, or, just something, kind of offhanded, or something like that. And I remember that happening to me multiple times. So I think just the education, educating yourself and not relying on the one designated Native person to be the spokesperson for everything. And I think one of the coolest things for me was, playing in the N7 games. And so, or if anything Native Indigenous was advertised at my school, if people just showed up and supported. And for me, that just really went a long way, because as an athlete, as a student athlete, you're burdened with so many things. And that made it easier for me to just perform better, and not focusing on, I have to say the right thing and I have to be the perfect representative of my people. And, because like I said, that's a lot of pressure. So I think just education on, especially the natives that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis, whose land you're on, where you live at. I think that can go a long way.
Good insight, Lakota. Shawn, you got some thoughts for us?
Yes, absolutely. You guys have seen, I don't know if you've been to a Suns game when we did an originative game, but oh my goodness, telling the story. So excited. You walk into the arena, you see all 22 Arizona tribal nations flags permanently installed. Yes, permanently installed. You walk in, you see those, like, wow, all right. You come into the game, you got a Native American DJ playing music in all the different spots in the arena. You walk in and you see the graphics. Everybody's represented here. The visuals you see, the music that's played. Come and get your love. It gets all the natives fired up. So all those kind of things that tie into telling the story and who you're sitting by, because you're like, whoa, what's happening here? The halftime, we got Apache crown dancers, not only dancing at halftime, but being able to say where they're from, what the dance is about, why they're wearing what they're wearing, being able to educate people so they understand and just put it all together. Graphics, we got Skodin pumpers, Studis pumpers, the Gorillas got a sign. Like I said, the music. And then before every anthem this year, I asked a serious question of our ownership and them so that we could get this permanent thing done every night. We do a land acknowledgement for the tribes that were here first. So before the anthem, that's read every night now. This year, we did it on all the Native nights last year, but now it's a permanent thing that we're doing, educating people. Every time we read it, right after, everybody cheers in there. We have the players doing a video talking about all the certain things about the different tribes here and what we're about and what we've done to set the standard and make sure everything is in harmony, if you will, here. And they talk about that. And we also have a tribal shout out from the players that we play at the games, and everybody hears their tribe, Navajo, Apache. You hear all the fans screaming in different pockets of the arena. But those are the little things that just go a long way. And for us, when we're at the game, we're like, whoa, this is different. This is different. But we all feel like we're at home because of all the things we put in place to make sure we're telling the story and telling it the right way. And if someone has a question, we can answer it, that we're still here, and here's how we're still here.
Great. That's awesome. I definitely would have loved to enjoy to come out to catch those games. And hopefully next time you can get Lakota and I some courtside seats right there. And well,
sit right next to me.
Exactly. I got some old 90s hip hop I can play. So,
Hey.
but we're wrapping up our questions here, and then we'll go into some more. We do have some questions from some of our viewers here that we'll pass along to you guys here. But in kind of wrapping up the question portion of this event, one of the things in the movie that that kind of hit me kind of hard was the mental health aspect that Malia was having to navigate by herself. Her parents were like, well, here's the car keys, you're on your own. And that was so significant because it's like they understood, as parents, it's time to send her out into the world and let her face these things. And of course, they had no experience being a Division I college athlete, and they weren't going to be able to. She was going to have to go through that herself. And and this is kind of more for, Lakota and your experience and your commitment to understanding mental health. And you recently had a documentary made that's available on your website, lakotabeatty.com, that talks about your own personal experience. And so that's kind of what I want you to share about your own personal experience about being in that environment with the situation that happened to you.
Yeah, it was difficult to watch, and for I'm pretty open about it. I have a documentary about it, but for the viewers watching and those who don't know, I lost a sister to suicide, and she was my teammate in college in 2017. So two Division I natives, and I think it was hard for me to watch the video just because I understood what she was going through when her parents understood, like you said, Brent, that they have to let her go. She has to go and do this. And so I just remember being in college, at first I played 2 years without my sister when I was at OSU because she was in high school, and then we played together. And it was better because she was there, but it was still really difficult. And like I said, back then, 5-6 years ago, it wasn't as prevalent to talk about your mental health. And so, I remember being in freshman. I mean, I probably every single year of any year I played basketball from college on, I think I remember calling my parents, and I called them last month and I was like, I just want to come home. It's so hard. I don't know if this is worth it. You're away from your family and it feels like it's like a sacrifice in the moment, and you can look back on it, in college, I look back on it and I can enjoy those memories. But I still can feel how hard it was, and how, seeing Malia in the movie, how, I know the loneliness she felt, and I could see it when the video of her flashback, even during her games, I could feel it. And so I think that's why I decided to go into, I'll be a licensed counselor pretty soon. I'm getting my master's in counseling, and then I want to probably do my PhD and then go into sports psychology. Because I think, especially for me now dealing with this grief, and all natives carry some sort of grief to where they go, and like Malia, all the living on the res and living in native communities, we all have the, generational trauma, and we hear about that now. But we all carry it, no matter if you're playing, you still show up, I carry it to practice, I carry it to games. So I think for me, especially during this process of playing professionally, I think I have so many ideas about how we can navigate this better, and how much better can our kids be and the native youth be if they could find a way to turn this into a positive. And that's what I've tried to do my very best at, is not letting that stop me. I always wanted to play professionally since I was little. Like Malia, I'm sure she wanted to play Division I from like probably 9 or 10. And I think our kids can do that and can do this, and they are doing it. But I think what I want to do is help bridge that gap and just find ways to, I guess, manage the trauma, because a lot of stuff that happens to us, it's not our fault, and it's going to happen, and bad things happen all the time. But we need to find a way with psychology to still, we're still going to be dealing with something, but we can still find a way to do well at our sport. I don't think it's enough for me to just, it was never enough for me to just be here and it's like, oh, you're the one native here and that's it. I still wanted to be the best. I still want to be the best on my team right now. So I think it's so important going forward that we figure out a way to be able to manage this better. And I think that comes with support. And then there's a lot of, different modalities when you get to the psychological and aspect of it. But for me, I just, how much better can we be if we weren't dealing with this? If we weren't depressed or we weren't anxious or we didn't miss home so much, how much better can we be when we're fully focused and not just completely in survival mode, just trying to make it,
Thank you, Lakota. Very important documentary you have, and I encourage everyone to go to Lakota's website and watch that. And that kind of leads us into basically our last official question of the evening. And we're getting close to wrap up. We'll go into some questions and we'll close this out for the hour. But, with what Lakota spoke of, what advice would you offer to Native youth dealing with these mental health challenges? And we know as Indigenous people, we're community based. Everything we do is community based. Our solutions are community based. And obviously we look to our tribal leaders and our tribal leaders to help with these issues and provide guidance on the issues. But certainly from your personal experiences, both of you guys have been out in the world for years now to offer some insight to this. But basically, what advice would you offer to the Native youth dealing with these mental health challenges? And I'll go right back to you, Lakota.
There's lots of, from working with therapists since my sister passed, and then becoming a therapist, and there's a lot of infrastructure issues that we need to deal with, and resources in terms of getting into a therapist or, a mental health, a trauma specialist, like I think about all the situations, you always hear about situations of Native kids passing or, and there's so much healing that needs to be done. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done too. And, but I would say just, if you don't have access to a therapist, luckily I had access to a therapist. But if you don't, it's just tell someone, just talk about it. Just tell your family or tell a friend, or, luckily I came from an amazing basketball program where I grew up and had coaches I could talk to. And so now, and I think, you, Brent and Shawn, I think what we want to do is just be that resource for kids. And I think now that can be good enough, but I think in the future, what I want to do is, like right now, I wish I had a Native sports psychologist that I could go see, to kind of help me through this. And so I don't know of one. I'm going to become one just because I don't know of one. So hopefully in 5-10 years, we have 50 kids playing overseas, and then, I can just Zoom with them, FaceTime with them, something like that. But I think it's just important. We just have to start talking about stuff more. And I think it goes way deeper into like colonization and boarding schools and stuff like that, of not being able to talk about things. But we can't do that. We can't do that anymore. So I try my best to be open with, my struggles, and I have a whole documentary on it that I talk about it. So that's why I'm really happy Malia did this, her documentary, because I watched it last month, and while I was over here and I was homesick and I was lonely and I was wanting to go home, and it helped me just to realize what I'm doing, and that we all have this purpose, and that I need to stick it out, because more kids can do this if they want.
Thank you, Lakota. Shawn, rephrase the question for you as well. What advice would you offer to Native youth dealing with these mental health challenges?
I think, like she said, communication. Make sure you talk about it with someone, and find someone in the community that's like you, because that would really help. I mean, it helped me for sure. I was at Southwest Indian School during from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and it was hard because they wouldn't even let me talk to my brothers. So it kind of almost got me ready for the real world, if you will, the other world. So it was something that I had to navigate and kind of figure out, how am I going to get to this? I want to talk to my brother. I want to go home. They could talk to me at certain points of the day, but using those moments, whether it's family, friends, a therapist, somebody close by to help you just talk about what's happening, so it can help you feel better about it and encourage you to keep going and not to quit. I tell the kids, I give out my email everywhere I speak now, because I want them to know that I'm here for them. If it's, you want to get a job, you need help, I can help you find somebody close to you that can help you like navigate what's happening in your life, just so I'm here for them. And that's what I want to be. I want to be there for them. I want to make sure they know I have a lot of experience of where I've been and where I've come from and where I am now, that I can at least point them in the right direction or help them personally, just kind of navigate the tough problems. And it means so much to me that I can tell the story to the kids where they can see, oh, that guy grew up just down the street. Like, he's from Rio Perco, and look what he's done. So they can see that I have some experiences that would help them navigate the tough times in life.
Thank you for those thoughts, Shawn. As we're nearing our allotted time here, we do have a question we'll go into, and then we'll go into final thoughts on and wrap up the show. But before we go into that, I just want to say thank you to both of you guys for appearing on this Facebook Live event with me today. And I'm definitely going to be in touch with both of you guys, the rest of the year and in the foreseeable future. But we do have one question from one of our viewers, and this is actually addressed to Lakota from Dr. Natalie Welch, someone you may know. The question for Lakota is, do you notice any difference in Indigenous representation and knowledge overseas?
Wow. Yeah. There's none. I've had so many people that, I interact with, and they're like, you're the first Native I've ever met. And one of them was like, I thought this is literally how she said it. She said, I thought all of you guys, and she didn't finish what she was saying. And I was like, died. And she was like, well, we just, we're not taught. And I laughed about it. But there's none. I don't mind answering all their questions. And, my sister came to visit me. She was here a couple weeks ago, and I said something to her in my language, and one of my teammates, she didn't know we spoke our own languages. And we had, I was like, English is not our original, that's a colonizer language. So for me, it's been so interesting to see, because, when you're around Native people, like I grew up in Anadarko, Oklahoma, we have 6 tribal headquarters there. And, I know words from different languages, and, we just grow up knowing that. But then it was a real culture shock when I got over here, and, they don't, I'm the first Native person they've ever met in 2023. I just hope that, in the future, that we can have so many, because I know so many Native athletes that could be playing professionally too. And I don't want that to be a hindrance for them to be like, oh, I feel discouraged that I have to explain this and then go home. That's not a reason to go home. So I hope that, we have more athletes that just can learn from my experiences, and that I can help and, help coach them and be successful, if they wanted to live in a different country and play ball.
Thank you, Lakota. We do have one final comment question, and appreciate everybody that's been watching and listening, and appreciate your comments. Shawn, I'll go to you with this question first, and then I'll come back to you, Lakota, as well. The question's from Diné Peterson, and I'll give you the short version on my side, but you can read through that. But basically, the question is, for those of us who are non-Native, how can we support our Native students and athletes?
I think the support comes from that right there, asking the question and getting involved. That's how you can support it, because the more you learn, the more you can help. I mean, it's a great way to just like jump in, dive in, feet first, and ask the question, because we're ready to educate people. We want people to know that we're still here, what we're about, what our traditions are about, what's right and what's wrong. How do we navigate through a different world? That's the best way, is to get involved and ask questions and invite us into your community to speak. Every time I'm out, like I said, I always say, hey, I'll come speak to your school. Whatever you need us to do, let us come tell you and help you understand us.
Thank you, Shawn. Lakota?
Yeah, everything Shawn just said, and that's a great question. It makes it so much easier for us whenever someone's willing to just learn and, like he said, just jump in. I've done, she said we hold events for Indigenous Peoples Day. November is a great month just to have a simple conversation like that. I've gone to different, colleges or schools, and talked about just being Native, especially being a Native athlete. And so that's a great way to bring everyone together, natives, non-natives, and just, like he said, educate.
Thank you, Lakota. And on some final thoughts here, and I'll let the final thoughts be whatever you want to share. Okay, it doesn't have to be about the movie. It doesn't have to be about. It can be whatever that you guys want to share. But I get to go first. But as the co-founder of Indian Sports, I've been covering athletes for over 20 years, Native American athletes, and I'm fortunate when I get to go and cover these games in person. I've been to Lakota's game many times, and that's always been great. I always enjoy watching her play. But supporting Native athletes is what I do. It's important because I see athletes, these are tribal chairmen, these are councilmen, these are CEOs of our Native corporations. Sports builds a foundation that makes them a natural leader. And, I would love to see all these Native athletes excel at the highest level because they become beacons, role models for those people in their communities and other Indigenous communities. So that's why I have done Indian sports for the past 20 plus years. But in regards to, this forum that we had today with speaking of the documentary of Malia Kip at Montana, what she done and what she accomplished it can't be said enough. And for her to be able to put herself out there and produce this documentary, I want to thank her because every reservation has a Malia Kip, whether it's Navajo, whether it's Lakota, Creek, Seminoles, Cherokee, we all have our person who made it out and is still successful like Malia today. So that's my final thoughts. That's my wrap up. And after they're done with their thoughts, we'll close out the show. But I'll go ahead and let Lakota go ahead and share her any final thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to, Family Theater Productions and Malia, and just for being on this, this discussion. I think it's so important. And I know I needed to see the documentary at the time I did, just to keep pushing and realize that, all of our hard work is not for nothing. And no matter how difficult, to all the athletes and stuff, no matter how difficult it gets, you can still accomplish things you want to accomplish. And the biggest thing is I wish someone would have told me that I deserve to be here, and I'm worth being here, and I'm smart enough to do this, and I'm talented enough to do this. So yeah, thank you guys.
Shawn, I'd like to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Malia. The movie was amazing. I love watching people from our culture that excel and are successful in Division I. I played Division II, Lakota. I mean, you guys, good job. Just being able to have a forum like this with all of us talking. It's great to meet you guys. It's great to be a part of it. And I tell everybody my latest thing that I've been telling everybody: for us as Natives, we are stronger when we lift each other up. And we just need to keep doing that every day, all day.
Awesome. Again, I really appreciate you guys being here. For those that joined late or to get to see things that went on earlier, as part of Native American Heritage Month, Native Ball is playing on PBS, or you can go to nativeball.com and watch it there. Thank you again to Lakota and Shawn. I appreciate you guys being here, and I'll be in touch with you guys soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Basketball? I think it was in my genes.
Kip made history in 1992 by becoming the first female Montana tribal member to play NCAA Division I basketball.
We had to figure out how to live in two worlds.
I can't say I would have played if I wouldn't have seen her playing.
She played her best for herself, for her university, and for her tribe. That's what makes her a warrior.